How's it going, everybody? Rob here, back with another video, and, well, we're doing another reaction, and I'm kind of dreading this. Sorry I did the first part of the Damsel in Distress, Tropes versus Women in Video Games video from Nia Sarkeesian, aka Feminist Frequency. So, now I'm doing the next one. It's been a while, so it's gonna be interesting. So, let's go ahead and get right into this. Now, by the way, before we... No, not that. That would actually be more entertaining. That, too. But, yeah, no, that would be more entertaining to watch. Now, I'm going to say this. Because in a lot of these videos, Anita has kind of set up this kind of dialogue that it's only... that, to an extent, for some reason or another, what happens to fictional characters in a video game, or at least the female characters in a video game, it somehow is translated or transferred over to people in real life, which that's not the case. And I want to also really kind of set up a thought experiment. Because, to an extent, as we go through these, I would have to guess, considering that, you know, some of the things that is said in these videos, Anita has this mindset that this is only a male-made demographic. But in reality, there has been both men and women that makes these video games. And men and women that play video games. And in some retrospect, enjoyed by both men and women. So, as we go through this, I'm ultimately, like, in my mind, and how I'm going to set up my arguments to some of the things she says in this video, keep in mind that, again, men and women have worked on some of these games. Alright, here we go. I kind of find it interesting that the first clip is on Dante's Inferno, which, by the way, for those who don't know, is based on the novella, where Dante literally goes into hell in search for his beloved. I mean, again, that's not it. That's even if it's a trope. I mean, it's not a video game trope. It's something that happened in an actual story. Actually, if I can add even further than that, to an extent... Okay, I'm going to say this. For those who have ever played Dante's Inferno, cover your ears. Because to some extent, you have to blame Dante for that. I will admit that. Because in that story, or at least for the game, the way they kind of set it up further in the game is... Dante's is basically fighting in a war. And he gets killed. Again, spoilers. Then again, it's years old. How you guys have not played Dante's Inferno? Anyway. While Dante was out fighting, Beatrice had somehow... And I kind of question this... had contact with the devil. And she made a deal for her own soul that if Dante stayed faithful, then she wouldn't be dragged down to hell with the devil. And unfortunately, again, I'm blaming Dante for this. In this version of the story, he is unfaithful to her. So there's a little bit more context to that. Like, it's not...
Welcome to the second episode in our multi-part series exploring the roles and representations of women in video games.
I'm not looking forward to this whatsoever, but let's keep going.
This project examines the tropes, plot devices, and patterns most commonly associated with women in gaming from a systemic, big-picture perspective. Over the course of this series, I will be offering critical analysis of many popular games and characters, but please keep in mind that it's both possible, and even necessary, to simultaneously enjoy a piece of media while also being critical of its more problematic or pernicious aspects.
I would have to agree with that, but considering the fact that it almost seems disingenuous with a lot of the things that she says, I mean, again, you can enjoy a piece of media and be critical, like, you know, kind of what I'm doing right now. Not really enjoying this one, but you guys get the point. You can be you can always be critical to something, but the way it in terms of these videos and the way that they're set up, it doesn't seem like it's based on good faith. It really isn't.
Thanks. I just want to caution viewers that as we delve into more modern games, we will be discussing examples that employ some particularly gruesome and graphic depictions of violence against women. I'll do my best to only show what is necessary, but this episode does come with a trigger warning. It's also recommended that parents preview the video first before sharing with younger children.
How often do kids actually freaking listen to their parents? I mean, let's be honest here. Half of them are playing games like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty and many others.
In our previous episode, we explored the history of the damsel in distress and how the trope became so pervasive in classic-era games from the 80s and early 90s. We also explored some of the core reasons why damsel characters are so problematic as representations of women. So if you haven't seen it yet, please check that one out before continuing to watch this one. As a trope, the damsel in distress is a plot device in which a female character is placed in a perilous situation from which she cannot escape on her own.
Can I just say, like, in terms of, like, the damsel in distress, I mean, over the years, I mean, that trope has more so been, I guess, it doesn't single out women at this point. Both men and women can be, you know, in some respect or another, be classified as a damsel. Ultimately, somebody that's in distress and needs to be saved. That's ultimately what happens with that trope.
And then must be rescued by a male character, usually providing an incentive or motivation for the protagonist's quest.
Or to an extent, you know, for those who are... I kind of find it funny that she just assumes why people are playing the game. More so, you know, to, you know, be a hero, to, you know, to, in a sense, in the situation where, like, let's say, yeah, a woman is captured, monster, you know, kill monster. Ultimately, you have to fight the monster to save the kingdom and rescue the princess. I mean, is that, if you're playing the knight, if you're playing the hero, is that a bad thing? Should you just literally flat out go, oh, well, fuck you, I'm gonna do my own thing? No, that isn't. Then, and to an extent, you'd probably have the female character claiming that you're misogynistic because, you know, you're not going to do your job.
Now, it might be tempting
or
to
help
think
a
that
woman.
the damsel in distress was just a product of its time, and that by now, surely the trope must be a thing of the past. Well, while we have seen a moderate increase in the number of playable female characters, the plot device hasn't gone away.
I kind of find it funny that, like, there have been, like, side characters that have been pretty good characters. But because you don't control them, she just glosses over that fact.
In fact, the damsel in distress has seen a bit of a resurgence in recent years.
Wait.
You've got to get me out of here.
I mean... And I know this is like, what, when did this come out again? 2013. I mean, again, as time has progressed, that has kind of changed, but again, there are other games that are, you know, have situations where men also get captured. Oh my god, Sonic 06. What is going on?
It's hurting me.
Alice?
Child of Eden, Max Payne, Azora's Wrath, Deadlight,
In her head.
Hitman,
What a dear little bird you are.
Ninja Gaiden, Alone in the Dark.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Suffice it to say, the trope is alive and well even today.
Yeah, but that's a storytelling device. It's not bad. Like I don't understand, like, what's... Like, I'm trying to, like, oh my gosh. Like, what is... Because it's, again, it's not just women that suffer from this. I mean, even in movies, like, oh my gosh, I think the one example I can think of right now that was actually really good, and I was just thinking about this movie earlier on, was The Princess Bride, where the main character, the main lead, the hero, he gets captured and tortured. Almost to death, by the way, till our other heroes, come to rescue him and take him to I think it was like a druid or something, where they save his life. And even then, by the way, like, when they save him, he's still, like, too weak to fight. So by the end, like, throughout the, like, last piece of the movie, they're having to prop him up in order to, you know, help him, with him helping them get into the castle to fight the king and everything. It's so funny.
And since the majority of these titles still focus on delivering crude, unsophisticated male power fantasies, developers are...
How is that? Okay, so Devil May Cry. How is... I'm sorry. Besides the ganglia things on the Toad demon, and Triss in her alternate outfit, what was, like, besides Kyrie being kidnapped, where was something crude that happened to her? Like, I'm trying to understand that. Because, in a sense, she basically just... wrong place, wrong time in the situation of what was going on in Devil May Cry 4. Her only crime, her only thing, was that she knew Nero. So it's like... Actually, if anything, like... If there was anything wrong that they did to Kyrie, was not giving her any screen time in Devil May Cry 5. Just saying.
largely unwilling to give up the damsel in distress as an easy default motivation for their brooding male heroes or anti-heroes.
Brooding male heroes. Come off it. So, again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. So, what do you expect the male character to do? Do you actually, if anything, do you want him to be like the reboot Dante? Where, at the beginning, where you had the female lead just ask him for help, and Virgil asking him for help, and he's just flat out like, what makes you think I give a shit? I mean, literally. Wait. Do you think that the option should be that besides saving the female lead, the character should be like, ah, fuck her. She can do it on her own, and just walk off? Yeah, no, that would go well with, everybody.
Remember that as a trope, the damsel in distress is a plot device used by writers, and not necessarily always just a one-dimensional character type entirely defined by victimhood. Now and then, damseled characters may be well-written, funny, dynamic, or likable.
I'm just trying to set you on fire through this stupid hat!
What a delightfully mean little brain you have.
However, this extra character development tends to make their eventual disempowerment all the more frustrating.
How?
Damsels on the more sassy end of the spectrum may struggle with their captors, or even attempt an escape on their own, but inevitably their efforts always prove futile. Occasionally they may be allowed to offer the hero a last-minute helping hand, or to kick the bad guy while he's down, but these moments are largely symbolic and typically only happen after the core adventure is over, or the danger has passed. These token gestures of pseudo-empowerment don't really offer any meaningful change to the core of the trope, and it feels like developers just throw these moments in the last minute to try and excuse their continued reliance on the damsel in distress.
I honestly don't know how to respond to that, because that sounds really dumb. If I can be honest.
Periodically, game developers may attempt to build a more fleshed-out relationship or emotional bond between the damseled character and the male protagonist.
Okay, so that last scene was from The Darkness. And by the way, that came from the comics too, by the way. If you even knew what actually happens in that game, I would have been really surprised. Because, I mean, let's face it, there was an allegation that she was stealing, video from other gaming channels to make these videos. But I digress. The Darkness. That was, I want to say, a very interesting experience. Yes, there is a couple of scenes where you interact with, what was her name? Jenny? Yeah, Jenny. Where Jenny is Jackie Estacado's girlfriend. Jackie, by the way, is a hitman for the mob. And on his 21st birthday, he inherits the power of the darkness, thanks to his grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, passing it down to his, grandfather, and then his father, and then to him. This thing is basically malice and insanity incarnate. And it will do everything it can to control and manipulate the host of its power. So, yes, there is a scene, or at least a part of the game, where you're literally watching, I believe it was To Catch a Mockingbird. By the way, whole movie plays. You could watch the entire To Catch a Mockingbird with the Jenny. And you'll get an achievement for that. But after that is done, after you basically go about your business, she gets captured. And yes, you do try to save her, but you don't succeed. Now, for those who know the game, know exactly what I'm talking about. Because when he shows up, the darkness holds him down and makes him watch as his uncle, the head of the mob, presses Jenny's face against the glass of the door that Jackie is on the other side of, and shoots her right in front of him. So, it's funny that, you know, she wants to downplay. Anita Sarkeesian tries to downplay some of these moments with the characters. But if you really think about it, I mean, there is an emotional impact. There is an emotional pull with moments like that. So I think it is very dishonest and disingenuous and very heartless to try to denounce scenes or moments with characters like that. Especially when, again, in a game like, let's say, The Darkness, that moment, like, even, again, I know it's all fiction, and we can all agree, it's fiction, it's a story, but to do something like that, where you have a, you know, you can make, and by the way, you could leave at any point if you wanted to, too. That's something I failed to mention. For a game to have you basically sit and watch an entire movie with a character, only a few missions later, to have you forcefully watch as your character's girlfriend gets shot in the head, and I would have to say is it impacts not only the character and their motivations, but in some sense yours as the player. Because again, it's not about the, it's not like, oh, you're just trying to save the woman because you want something. Like, no. At times, especially with some of these games, that there's an emotional impact to these games. And I just spent a lot of time just talking about this.
In the most decidedly patronizing examples, depictions of female vulnerability are used as an easy way for writers to trigger an emotional reaction in male players.
Wait, replay that?
In the most decidedly patronizing examples,
She calls it fucking patronizing. Fuck off. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit heated, but it's stupid.
depictions of female vulnerability are used as an easy way for writers to trigger an emotional reaction in male players. As we discussed in our first episode, when
It's not just like a fucking trigger. It's, you know, again, because I doubt you ever played any of these fucking games. I mean, I've never played Pandora's Tower, but again, as you play a game, you do end up becoming invested in it, especially for those that have really good stories. I mean, and as I mentioned just a little bit ago, with my whole rant about freaking the game The Darkness, to have a game go so far to make one interaction very important, and have some form of connection with the characters, really says a lot. Especially when, again, a few missions later, all of that is just gone. Like that.
female characters are damseled, their ostensible agency is removed, and they're reduced to a state of victimhood. So narratives that frame intimacy, love, or romance as something that blossoms from or hinges upon the disempowerment and victimization of women are extremely troubling because they tend to reinforce the widespread regressive notion that women in vulnerable, passive, or subordinate positions are somehow desirable because of their powerlessness.
Or it's because there's an actual genuine connection between the characters. It's not... What?
Unfortunately, these types of stories also help to perpetuate the paternalistic belief that power imbalances within romantic relationships are appealing, expected, or normal.
Expected.
Okay, so we know that the damsel in distress is alive and well in gaming, but that's not the full picture. There's an even more insidious side to the story.
Oh.
Over the past decade, game companies have been desperately searching for ways to stand out in a market increasingly oversaturated with very similar products. As a consequence, we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of games attempting to cut through the clutter by being as dark and edgy as possible. So we've seen developers try to spice up the damsel in distress cliche by combining it with other tropes that involve victimized women. I've identified a few of the most common of these trope cocktails, which join together multiple regressive or negative representations of women.
Okay, so I want to say... Okay, so... Already, 4 of these I recognize. I want to say on the bottom left center with the red background, or like you guys can't see it because it's, if I can use my mouse. So over here, that's Jenny for the Darkness 2. So with that game, Jackie, dude, he basically got his revenge, but still has visions of Jenny, only to find out that she's in hell. And she was captured by the darkness. Now, I've already said enough plot, spoilers to that game, and I actually would like to say that you guys need to watch it. Because with that one, there's a more insidious reason why she is captured by the darkness. If anything, fearful of her because she's captured. But other than that, there is a reason for Jackie to try to rescue her. Or at least attempt to rescue her. To free her from the darkness. Now this character, I can't remember her name over here. She was in Dishonored. She was the Empress. Actually, her daughter was one of the characters as well, who basically becomes a playable character in number 2. And in a sense is implied that the Empress's daughter is a governess. I can't remember. But either way, the daughter is Corvo Tano's daughter. Then on the top right, second right, we have Beatrice from Dante's Inferno. And I could be wrong. I would only have to guess that this character here would have to be Kratos' wife. Again, I could be very wrong right here. Anyway.
Including the disposable woman, the mercy killing, and the woman in the refrigerator. The term women in refrigerators was coined in the late 1990s by comic book writer Gail Simone to describe the trend of female comic book characters who are routinely brutalized or killed off as a plot device designed to move the male character's story arc forward.
I mean, that goes for both men and women. I mean, at this point, regardless of if it's not trying to downplay it, but it's not just women anymore that this happens to.
The trope name comes from Green Lantern issue number 54, in which the superhero returns home to find his girlfriend murdered and stuffed inside his refrigerator. This trading of female characters' lives for something meant to resemble male character development is of course part of a long media tradition, but the gruesome death of women for shock value is especially prevalent in modern gaming.
I mean, again, that goes for both men and women.
The women and refrigerator trope is used as the cornerstone of some of the most famous contemporary video games. It provides the core motivational hook behind both the Max Payne and the God of War series, for example.
My wife.
I'm getting kind of irritated that she's kind of trying to downplay the emotional effect with some of the characters that are. I mean, oh my gosh. It's so what should be his motivation? Like for Kratos, a man who basically sold his soul to Hades. Like should he again? Should he just be a mindless pawn? Should he just be like fuck it? You know, my wife and my kid are dead. Well, I'm just gonna go kill everybody. Continue being Hades, or no, Ares. Sorry, I said Hades, but Ares. I'm just gonna go and continue being Ares's pawn. Ares's pawn. I'm just gonna indiscriminately start killing everybody. No. Because, and by the way, it's funny, because in a sense, with the death of not just his wife but his daughter, he goes through agonizing torment because of what he did. So much so that he rebels against Ares. His torment is what causes him to his grief, his regret, everything is what causes him to basically fuck you, Ares. I'm going to kill you. I don't appreciate how she's trying to downplay some of the storytelling in this. It's like, oh, storytelling is bad. No, it's not. A trope is a plot device for telling a story. Just like with books, movies, comic books, etc. It's a trope, yes, but at the same time, it's used to help basically continue the story.
My child.
In each case, the protagonist's wife and daughter are brutally murdered, and their deaths are then used by the developers as a pretext for their inevitable bloody revenge quest. It's interesting to note that the reverse scenario, games hinging on a woman vowing revenge for her murdered boyfriend or husband, are practically non-existent. The gender role reversal is so unusual that it borders on the absurd.
I'm sorry, but I mean, I'm sorry, but characters like Samus from Metroid, didn't her entire family get brutally fucking murdered by Ridley? And she trained to go and take him down? I mean, it's not... okay, you know what? She says that it's non-existent, huh? Female characters in video games that get revenge. So, let's see. Samus Aran, bounty hunter seeking retribution against the space pirates who invaded her home planet, and experimented on her species. I think they experiment on her people, but anyway. Bayonetta, a powerful witch with a mysterious past who battles against forces that seek to control her powers, often driven by a desire for vengeance. Aloy, a skilled hunter in a post-apocalyptic world, searching for the truth behind her origins and the downfall of civilization, ultimately aiming to take down the machines that destroyed her people. Emily, by the way, Emily Coldwin, the daughter of Empress Coldwin, gets revenge. By the way, and you can play the pacifist route if you wanted to, but gets revenge on the witch that cursed her father to stone. Oh, and let's not forget, in recent years, Ellie. So, to an extent, this whole idea that it's non-existent for women to get revenge is utter fucking bullshit.
Which is one of the reasons why the scene from Disney's Wreck-It Ralph is so humorous. I could do a very long video just exploring this one trope in gaming. But
It would actually make... sorry, I doubt that, considering it would actually, require you to actually, do something.
today I want to look at how the woman in refrigerator is connected to the damsel in distress, and specifically the ways game developers have found to combine these two plot devices. One popular variation is to simply use both tropes in the same plotline, so as to have the male protagonist's wife stuffed in the fridge while his daughter is damseled. In Outlaws, your wife is brutally murdered and you then have to rescue your daughter.
Who did this?
They've taken Sarah.
In Kane and Lynch, your wife is brutally murdered and you then have to rescue your daughter.
I'll find them all before they find Jenny.
Oh, that sounds like the same guy that played as Staccato.
In Prototype 2, your wife is brutally murdered and you then have to rescue your daughter.
Again, you act as if this is a bad thing. Like, how is this bad? Because you say so? Like, how is, like... You act as if motivation for a story is bad.
In Inversion, your wife is brutally murdered and you then have to rescue your daughter.
Layla, where is she?
In Asura's Wrath, your wife is brutally murdered and you then have to rescue your daughter.
Save her.
In Dishonored, the Empress is brutally murdered and you then have to rescue her daughter.
And Corvos. Because, again, it's implied that Corvo is Emily's father.
Though it's heavily implied that she's your daughter too.
Yeah.
Find Emily. Protect her.
It's no coincidence that the fridge plot device and the damsel plot device work in much the same way. Both involve female characters who have been reduced to complete states of powerlessness by the narrative, one via kidnapping, the other via murder. The two plot devices used together then allow developers to exploit both the revenge motivation and the good old-fashioned save the girl motivation. Believe it or not, there is another more insidious version of this particular trope hybrid, which I call the damsel in the refrigerator. Now, you may be asking yourself, how can a fridged woman still be in distress? Since by definition, being fridged usually sort of requires being dead. Well, here's how it works. The damsel in the refrigerator occurs when the hero's sweetheart is brutally murdered, and her soul is then trapped or abducted by the villain. This oh-so-dark and edgy twist provides players with a double dose of female disempowerment, and allows developers to again exploit both the revenge motivation and the saving the damsel motivation.
It's irritating that she tries to downplay an emotional, reason for you to, So, what do you expect the character to do? It's what motivations should they have in a lot of these situations? Because, by the way, I want to point something out, too. Because, to an extent, Jenny, that character from, you know, The Darkness 1 and 2, which we see an image of in this, I would have to say is one of the reasons why, between The Darkness 1 and 2, Jackie does what he can to basically conceal the darkness. Yeah, he let Pandora, when he kills his uncle, basically his soul is owned by the darkness. But in some way, thanks to somebody he found, he is able to contain it. Basically close up Pandora's box for a time. That is until the Brotherhood show up and attack him. By which case, you know, he had to open said Pandora's box. And unfortunately, due to that, the images of Jenny start flooding in.
But this time with the same woman at the same time. This trope combination can be traced back to old school side-scrollers like Splatterhouse 2 and Ghouls and Ghosts, but the damsel in the refrigerator has definitely become a more popular trend in recent years. In Medieval 2, your murdered girlfriend's soul is stolen and you must fight to save her. In The Darkness 2, your murdered girlfriend's soul is trapped in hell and you must fight to free her.
By the way, that... You don't. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a reason why she was captured. There's more. It's funny that she's not even giving all the details because there's more reason why that she was captured. It's not just because, oh, she's Jackie's love. There was a much darker reason for her to be captured by the darkness. Again, a more fearful reason to be captured by the darkness. If anybody with a fucking brain would know. But I'm sorry. I'm being too mean. Anybody who played video games would know.
In Shadows of the Damned, your murdered girlfriend's soul is trapped in hell and you must fight to free her. Help her! In Dante's Inferno, your murdered wife's soul is trapped in hell and you must fight to free her.
Because she made a deal with the devil. Again, I will admit, Dante in this story version of Dante, he fucked up. She made a deal with the devil for him to be faithful. He wasn't. No, I will admit that. Yeah. No, she kind of fucked up on that one. Especially when, again, making a deal with the fucking devil.
In Castlevania Lords of Shadow, your wife's soul is trapped on Earth and you must fight to free her. The damsel in the refrigerator is part of a larger trend of throwing women under the bus in increasingly gruesome ways.
How is that throwing them under the bus? I mean, isn't the point of, you know, playing a game is to be invested in the game? To, in a sense, make you somewhat feel, or at least have some understanding of what the characters are going through? Again, like any book or movie in storytelling. Gee, again, it's almost like, you know, she doesn't understand what the fuck storytelling is.
An apparent attempt to interject what I'll loosely refer to as mature themes. Developers must be hoping that by exploiting sensationalized images of brutalized women, it'll be enough to fool gamers into thinking that their games are becoming more emotionally sophisticated.
Fuck off! You know what? No. Just fuck off. Using gruesome images to fuck off. I know I sound like I'm getting heated, but dude, that's not the fucking reason, man. you're just assuming why gamers would like this. Why gamers get invested. I would say ultimately, gamers become invested with the interactions of the characters. Not because of like how brutally they die. That's why, again, when I talked about the darkness, your interaction with both the characters Jackie Estacado and Jenny, you understand why they're a couple. And again, it gives you the option whether to watch the full movie of To Kill a Mockingbird or not. I know I keep going back to that, but it's very... It's like, with this video, I can't fathom why she just assumes that, like, you know, especially in terms of, like, tropes. Because at this point, a damsel can be referenced to either a man or a woman at this point. Why just assume that it's only... And by the way, as I mentioned before, both men and women play this. So it's not men... It's not just men that get invested in these games. It's women too.
But the truth is, there's nothing mature about most of these stories, and many of them cross the line into blatant misogyny.
Okay.
Since what we're really talking about here are depictions of violence against women, it might be useful to quickly define what I mean by that term. When I say violence against women, I'm primarily referring to images of women being victimized, or when violence is linked specifically to a character's gender or sexuality.
How?
Female characters who happen to be involved in violent or combat situations on relatively equal footing with their opponents are typically exempt from this category because they're not usually framed as victims.
Why are you using a fighting game as a reference? I mean, that's a fighting game. You're gonna have both men and women fight in the game. Like, why was that used?
As I mentioned in our last video, the damsel in distress doesn't always have to be accompanied by a heroic rescue.
Here I was again, with all hell breaking loose around me, standing over another dead girl I had been trying to protect.
Sometimes the hero fails to save the woman in question, either because he arrives too late, or because, surprise twist, she's been dead the whole time.
Oh, fuck you. Okay, no, I'm sorry. No. Are you seriously gonna try to downplay that? I mean, whether it's a plot twist or not, are you seriously gonna try to downplay that fucking moment in that game? By the way, this is the version of the game, because they did do the remake, but this is the version, like, the first game, the first version of Dead Space 1. Your character does not talk at any point in the game. So, in a sense, you're put in Isaac's shoes as he goes through this hell, and the entire time he's trying to find out what happened to his freaking girlfriend. I think it was a girlfriend, wife, Nicole. And yes, by the end, she contacts you, and you think, okay, she's alive. Only for that thing. By the way, as he's progressing through this, suffering from some form of psychosis, considering that, you know, they're dealing with the marker, and what he assumed was Nicole was actually a lie. And any gamer's reaction to finding out that Nicole the entire time is dead, which, by the way, if you actually pay attention to the title of each chapter, take the first letter, it literally spells out Nicole is dead. So anybody that at this point who are new to playing this game had never seen this and saw that scene, I can only imagine the emotional turmoil that some people felt, especially when, again, they got so invested in this horror game.
Nicole has been dead this whole time.
Fuck you.
No! All my powers, and I couldn't do a thing.
Is that supposed to be Godfather? Yeah, the Godfather game. Deadlight.
Or in the case of the 2009 version of Bionic Commando, not only has your wife been dead the whole time, but turns out she's actually a part of your bionic arm.
Wasn't that game shit?
I never want you to be involved in this.
It's okay. I'll always be by your side.
Yes, you heard that correctly. His wife is his arm.
Oh, fuck off. Again, I've never played that game, but I heard it was terrible. So, it's like... Your little fake, like... Your little fake gesture right here is so fucking cringe.
But the most extreme and gruesome variant of this trend is when developers combine the damsel in distress with the mercy killing. This usually happens when the player character must murder the woman in peril for her own good. I like to call this happy little gem the euthanized damsel. Typically, the damsel has been mutilated or deformed in some way by the villain, and the only option left of the hero is to put her out of her misery himself.
So, this goes back, in a sense, this kind of goes back, goes back to what I'm saying before. So, you have a situation where a character has been brutally mutilated, transformed into something, and more likely is in agonizing pain. Are you just going to just, say fuck you and walk off? Do you let them, go and indiscriminately kill people because of the monsters that they became? It's like, it's for storytelling. It's like, what the fuck do you expect the character to do? No, I actually genuinely want to know. If not to basically put, oh my gosh. I'm just gonna keep playing it. I'll gather my thoughts.
We can trace this one back to the original 1980s arcade game Splatterhouse, in which your kidnapped girlfriend is possessed and the player is forced to fight and kill her. After saving his bitten beloved in Castlevania Lament of Innocence, the hero must then kill her to gain the power to defeat the Vampire Lord.
Thank you, Leon.
In Breath of Fire 4, Alina has been turned into a hideous monster and then begs you to kill her. In Gears of War 2, Dom is motivated to rescue his captured wife Maria. When he finds her, she has been starved and possibly tortured into a catatonic state, and so he...
I'm just gonna say this right now. I'm gonna pause it. I want to say it's really, really fucking irritating that situations like this, like what we're seeing, like what she just brought up, and it just sounds like she fucking downplays it. Let's... Oh, okay. Because I didn't think that I would have to go through... I want to say this. Out of all the characters from Gears of War, that I actually kind of became emotionally invested in, it was Dom. Despite all the shit that was going on in Gears of War, Dom, in some retrospect, almost seemed kind of like the guy that was in the better disposition compared to Marcus. One of his big motivations was, yes, finding his wife. And we kind of get a hint that there was a life that he had with his family before all the shit with the Locust happened. And for the longest time, he's been trying to find his wife. Only to find her. And, by the way, what is in the equivalence of a freaking, prison camp, tortured, starved, and more likely completely and utterly mentally broken. She can't function on her own. And to an extent, Dom not just wanting to leave her there to continue being basically tortured by these monsters does the only thing he can do. And in Gears 3, what happened to Maria fucking torments him. He's broken. He is a lost individual who's lost everything. Besides, the people that he considers friends and family and soldiers in arms. And by the end, towards the end of Gears of War 3, when there is a situation where his friends are overrun at a fueling station, he does the only thing he can do, considering that he was the closest to a vehicle. He takes the vehicle and without hesitation plows the vehicle, the truck, into the fueling station, removing and destroying any enemy in sight. As I said before, as you play a game, if it has a good enough story, you become invested in the characters. With Gears of War, with the Gears of War franchise, Dom was that character that I got invested in, because in all genuine aspect, you feel his pain and what he goes through, especially with Gears of War 2. And you have people like this that fucking downplay this whole scene. And I go back, I keep asking this question, but I have to ask it again. What should Dom have done then? Should he have just walked away? Just left her there to continue being tortured? I don't think people like Anita would understand that kind of question.
He shoots her. In Tenchu, shadow assassins.
Do it. You must.
The princess meekly asks the hero to cut her down to get to the villain, which he does. A particularly egregious example can be found in Grand Theft Auto 3, when after you've rescued Maria Latour, it's implied that the protagonist suddenly shoots her because she's talking about stereotypically girly things.
I broke a nail and my hair is ruined. I mean, can you believe it? This one cost me $50.
The writers deliberately wrote her character to annoy the player, so in the end, the violence against her becomes the punchline of a cheap misogynist joke.
Never played it, so I wouldn't know. By the way, that's also GTA is supposed to be like a parody of, you know. It's never played it. I don't know. I'm sure. Oh my gosh. I'll say this. If that's actually the case, I'll give you that one because I've never played it. But to an extent, GTA is basically a satire of, you know, real people, or makes fun of, you know, real world situations.
Sometimes these killings happen via cutscene, while other games ask the player to participate directly by pulling the trigger themselves. In the Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles remake, if you don't rescue Richter Belmont's beloved Annette, she will turn into a vampire and you'll then have to kill her.
Oh my god, Annette. I'm so sorry I didn't save you. But you know what I do to vampires. What I have to do.
No! I'll make you mine forever!
The captured women in Duke Nukem 3D beg you to kill them throughout the game. This misogynist scene is regurgitated and actually made worse in the 2011 follow-up, Duke Nukem Forever, developed.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you that one, because that game is shit. No, I'm not even going to fight that one. No. Actually, I'll give her that one. I'll admit, that game is actually really fucking garbage. I'll concede to that one. Yeah, no. That game was completely and utter trash.
By Gearbox. Another popular Gearbox game, Borderlands 2, also uses this plot twist when Angel asks the player to murder her as a way to try and thwart the villain's evil.
But you know why, right?
Plan.
Destroying the iridium injectors that keep me alive will stop the key from charging.
I mean, you know why, right? I mean, do I even need to explain this? I mean, anybody who's played the game knows fucking why. I mean, again, it's horrible that you have to kill her. Because to an extent, she is a useful character. But let's be fair. Let's be honest here. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. So, Angel is the daughter of Handsome Jack. Ever since she was a little girl, she's been held in fucking captivity. Because in the past, because of her siren powers, she accidentally killed her own mother during an attack from bandits. And with everything that's happened with Jack, his motivations, him continuously being betrayed, he becomes Handsome Jack. And comes across an artifact that tells him how to basically rid Pandora of all of the violence and the evil. That, of course, being the warrior. A warrior creature that, once the vault is open, is controlled by the one that opens it. So, he uses Angel to charge the vault key. Because normally it would take years upon years to charge this stupid thing. But thanks to Angel's powers as a siren and her ability to synthesize iridium, he uses her to charge the key faster, so that he could use it to summon the warrior and kill everyone on Pandora. Granted, again, a lot of people on Pandora suck. But Angel knew she had to do what she could to stop her dad from summoning this monster. Even if it meant her own life. Again, it just... I hate to say it, but it just seems very disingenuous when you have somebody who creates these extensive videos on the tropes of versus women in video games and doesn't give actual fucking context to the games that she's talking about.
And it will end a lifetime of servitude.
The end of Alone in the Dark gives the player the choice between killing your girlfriend yourself.
Choose quickly, carrier. Kill her or let her live. You alone can decide.
Or letting Satan kill her by being reborn in her body. The Wii game Pandora's Tower includes one ending in which Elena begs you to kill her before she completes her transformation into a monster.
Please. I beg of you.
Help me! I'm so afraid!
In the 2006
Oh, that's Prey, too. Okay.
shooter Prey, when the hero finally reaches his abducted girlfriend, she's been hideously mutilated and fused with a monster, which you must fight while she screams for help over and over again.
Get away from me, Tommy! She wants me to kill you! I can't stop it!
After being incapacitated, she begs you to kill her.
Please, Tommy. Let me go.
And the player can't advance in the narrative until you shoot her in the face.
I'm pretty sure there are other places you could do that. Considering the fact that, you know, it doesn't specify shooting her in the head. But, and I know I sound bad by trying to justify it, but it's like, dude, it's irritating. It's irritating that you have somebody who's basically trying to denounce a lot of the games that she is talking about and acting all high and mighty, claiming that she knows the reasons why people enjoy playing video games or why people are motivated to play video games. It's so fucking disingenuous.
These damseled women are written so as to subordinate themselves to men. They
No.
submissively accept their grisly fate and will often beg the player to perform violence on them, giving men
What?
direct and total control over whether they live or die, even saying thank you with their dying breath. In other words, these women are asking for it.
No, they're not. That's... What? I'm at a loss for words. That's got to be the dumbest fucking thing I've heard. Like, one of the dumbest things I heard in this video so far. Women are asked to be are asking to be fucking killed. Give me a fucking break.
Quite literally. The euthanized damsel is the darkest and edgiest of these trope hybrids, but it's also an extension of a larger pattern in gaming narratives where male protagonists are forced to fight their own loved ones who have been possessed or brainwashed by villains. When Kratos finds his mother in the PSP game God of War Ghosts of Sparta, she morphs into a hideous beast, forcing you to fight and kill her. An act for which she thanks you with her dying breath.
Finally, I am free.
If I remember correctly, wasn't she cursed by Zeus? to not mention who Kratos' father was. So it's not like, you know... I mean, again, it's... Would you rather she be a freaking disgusting monster killing people indiscriminately? Like... What's the better fucking option? Like, I'm trying to understand this. Because at this point, it seems like Anita would rather have them being fucking monsters and just have them killing indiscriminately and let them do their thing. That's what it seems like.
After your girlfriend is transformed into a green ogre and grabbed by the ghoulies, she chases you around trying to get a kiss. Later, you must beat her unconscious before she can be returned to normal. The final boss in Shadows of the Damned turns out to be your own girlfriend.
Where is my freedom?
Who you must shoot down. Similar scenarios are replicated in dozens of other titles as well.
Okay, so we saw... Hold on, go back. So, Legend of Zelda, which, by the way, that is a similar fight for where you're fighting Ganon, to an extent. Then Jill, who at one point was presumed dead because she basically falls off a cliff with Wesker. Devil Summoner, Soulless Army, Ninja Gaiden.
Although the narratives all differ slightly, the core element remains the same. In each case, violence is used to bring these women back to their senses. These stories conjure up supernatural situations in which domestic violence perpetrated by men against women who have lost control of themselves not
Domestic violence against... Are you fucking kidding me?
Not only appears justified, but is presented as an altruistic act done for the woman's own good.
I wish I had some alcohol right now. I know that's bad for me to say, but I want to try to understand this level of thinking. I'm trying to find rationale, but it sounds so fucking stupid. It really is. And this individual acts as if they are, saying something that's intelligent, but it's not. And acting as if, we play games to fucking attack women. It's not. It's so fucking, so backwards. It really is.
Of course, if you look at any of these games in isolation, you'll be able to find incidental narrative circumstances that can be used to explain away the inclusion of violence against women as a plot device. But just because a particular event might make sense within the internal logic of a fictional narrative, that doesn't in and of itself justify its use. Games don't exist.
This goes back to what you guys already know the question. It's like, what do you fucking expect, man?
In a vacuum, and therefore can't be divorced from the larger cultural context of the real world. It's especially troubling in light of the serious, real-life epidemic of violence against women facing the female population on this.
Yeah, but that's real life. We're talking about what happens in video games, fiction. Are you trying to imply, I have a feeling this is where this is going. Are you trying to imply that what happens in video games negatively affects men to do to women? In which case, I would stop right there, because that is so fucking backwards. Especially since time and time again it's been proven that video games don't cause you to be sexist. Video games don't cause you to be racist or homophobic.
Planet. Every 9 seconds, a woman is.
You know, actually, no. I'm gonna stop for a second because this has always bugged me with this individual because I've seen a few of her videos, and here's the one thing that's always fucking bugged me. She spends all of this time focusing on fictional characters, the attacks on, or basically the injustice of pixels, people who are, are fictional characters in a video game or a movie or etc. But in reality, as far as I've seen, has not at all spent any time talking about actual real world violence against women. And by the way, and I'm not talking about for the most part. I'm talking about what happens to women in third world countries, where women are beaten, freaking mutilated, and tortured or used. Women who basically are treated as objects in third world countries. How often do you actually hear this woman talking about that? Because, let's be honest here, if she actually did, then quite possibly, she could actually make a difference. But no. Instead, she focuses her career to try to talk shit about a community that she knows nothing about. It's very glaring that that's what that is. And it goes to show that like some of her concerns seem very disingenuous.
Is assaulted or beaten in the United States. And on average, more than 3 women are murdered by their boyfriends, husbands, or ex-partners every single day.
What about the men? You're not going to talk about the men either. So, why should I care what you say at this point?
Research consistently shows that people of all genders tend to buy into the myth that women are the ones to blame for the violence men perpetrate against them.
No.
In the same vein, abusive men consistently state that their female targets deserved it, wanted it, or were asking for it.
Yeah, but that's not all men, though. That's not all men.
Given the reality of that larger cultural context, it should go without saying that it's dangerously irresponsible to be creating games in which players are encouraged and even required to perform violence against women in order to save them. Even though most of the games that we're talking about don't explicitly condone violence against women, nevertheless they trivialize and exploit female suffering as a way to ratchet up the emotional or sexual stakes for the player.
No.
Despite these troubling implications, game creators aren't necessarily all sitting around twirling their nefarious-looking mustaches while consciously trying to figure out how to best misrepresent women as part of some grand conspiracy. Most probably just haven't given much thought to the underlying messages their games are sending, and in many cases, developers have backed themselves into a corner with their own game mechanics. When violence is the primary gameplay mechanic, and therefore the primary way that the player engages with the game world, it severely limits the options for problem solving. The player is then forced to use violence to deal with almost all situations because it's the only meaningful mechanic available, even if that means beating up or killing the women they're meant to love or care about.
I've already asked my question, the same question over and over again. You guys, I ask you guys, what are your thoughts? It's just, I feel like I think I've said my piece.
One of the really insidious things about systemic and institutional sexism is that most often regressive attitudes and harmful gender stereotypes are maintained and perpetuated unintentionally. Likewise, engaging with these games is not going to magically transform players into raging sexists. We typically don't have a monkey see, monkey do direct cause and effect relationship with the media we consume. Cultural influence works in much more subtle and complicated ways. However, media narratives do have a powerful cultivation effect, helping to shape cultural attitudes and opinions. So when developers exploit sensationalized images of brutalized, mutilated, and victimized women over and over and over again, it tends to reinforce the dominant gender paradigm, which casts men as aggressive and commanding, and frames women as subordinate and dependent. Although these stories use female trauma as the catalyst to set the plot elements in motion, these are not stories about women. Nor are they concerned with the struggles of women navigating the mental, emotional, and physical ramifications of violence. Instead, these are strictly male-centered stories, in which, more often than not, the tragic damsels are just empty shells, whose death...
I do not like the way that she just denounces all the character interactions in video games. They're not empty shells. They're not. They're really not. There's a reason why they do the things they do. They set up in these stories. Because again, as you're playing a game, yes, you do get emotionally invested. And by the way, if especially if you're playing a story-based game and the characters are bland, are you going to continue playing the game? No, you're not. Are you going to continue if the characters just do absolutely nothing? No, you're not. In a situation where, as she pointed out, you have a female character who is captured, tortured, and turned into a monster, do you just let her be? And let her just indiscriminately kill people? And the only one that could possibly stop her is yourself? This downplay of character interaction is so, again, so fucking disingenuous.
are depicted as far more meaningful than their lives. Generally, they're completely defined by their purity, innocence, kindness, beauty, or sensuality. In short, they're just symbols meant to invoke the essence of an artificial feminine ideal. In fact, these games usually frame the loss of the woman as something that has been unjustly taken from the male hero.
So now, I take from you.
Jackie, this is not your fault.
It's irritating that I just was talking about that earlier. And lo and behold, she shows exactly what I'm talking about. By the way, something I forgot to mention is it's hinted at through certain segments of the game that Jackie and Jenny have known each other for a very long time. They started off as friends at an orphanage. They grew up together. They fell in love. And to watch the only person that ever cared about you, like truly, have her brains blown out by your uncle, the mob boss. how do you feel? Like, in a sense, if you were in that situation, how would you feel? What would be, like, at that point, what is your motivation? Especially since, while this is happening, this power that you just recently came across is now infesting your body and basically holding you down and watching your only girlfriend, the only person you've cared about for years, basically get assassinated in front of you. To try to downplay character interactions like this, it just goes to show that, you know, Anita Sarkeesian doesn't know anything about video games. Doesn't know anything about storytelling whatsoever. I think in the end she made a video just to make a fucking video. To try to attack. We got 3 minutes. I know I got 3 minutes of this video, but she just made the video to wrongfully attack a community that she knows nothing about. And it's sickening.
The implication being that she belonged to him, that she was his possession.
No! No, fuck you. You know what? No. Okay. You know what? No. No. That is a fucking... No. You know what? I know I'm gonna sound like a neckbeard. Fuck it. You know what? This is so fucking disingenuous. To make it sound like, oh, she was just her possession. Or his possession. No. Fuck you. Again, if you played the game, you would fucking know. That is so fucking wrong. To try to make it seem like... To try to claim that. To make that claim. Straight, like, just, you know, fucking, you know, bull-faced fucking lie. This person is so fucking disingenuous, man. They really are.
Once wronged, the hero must go get his possessions back, or at least exact a heavy price for their loss.
No.
On the surface, victimized women are framed as the reason for the hero's torment. But if we dig a little deeper into the subtext, I'd argue that the true source of the pain stems from feelings of weakness and or guilt over his failure to perform his socially prescribed patriarchal duty to protect his women and children.
And I hated myself for allowing this to happen.
I mean, is it wrong for a man to feel... I mean, at this point, is it wrong for a man to feel anything? Is it wrong for a man to feel guilt for failure? Like, are you trying to say that they shouldn't feel anger or regret or, you know, or anything for loss? I mean, heck, you know, it's funny because I think, if I remember correctly, you praised The Last of Us 2. So, Ellie, after Joel gets his brains fucking bashed in by Abby with a fucking golf club, should she not... I'm guessing she can't be angry because, you know, Joel died. I'm guessing, like, every other... it's like... It's this whole, like, rules for thee, not for me situation. It's so irritating It really is. It's hypocritical and just disingenuous to try to make it like, these characters can't feel anger or regret or loss or anything or have any motivation to continue the story. It's not just video games that use this whole situation of somebody dying. It's not always men. It's not always women that die. Men die and become a motivation for characters too. Hell, you know what? Actually, no. Didn't the movie Kill Bill, like, in terms of, like, the main character for Kill Bill, she lost everything because of her former assassin buddies? Like, she got married, her husband got killed, she almost died, paralyzed, put in a coma, whatever. And she takes revenge on what they took from her. Like, is she not allowed to feel anger or regret or revenge for what happened? Characters, whether they be man or woman, are allowed to have fucking grief, revenge, loss, regret. It's not just men. And for you to claim that it's just men it's bad because it's men, or that men go through this and have this be their only motivation, is disingenuous and just, it's wrong. It really is.
To her and our little girl.
In this way, these failed hero stories are really about the perceived loss of masculinity, and then the quest to regain that masculinity.
It's not about masculinity. Fuck off.
Primarily by exerting dominance and control through the performance of violence on others.
Yeah, no. I mean, if there's any violence, it's not against women, and it's against men. Or monsters. Mostly monsters.
Consequently, violent revenge-based narratives repeated ad nauseum can also be harmful to men because they help to further limit the possible responses men are allowed to have when faced with death or tragedy. This is unfortunate because interactive media has the potential to be a brilliant medium for people of all genders to explore difficult or painful subjects. So to be clear here, the problem is not the fact that...
So, isn't dealing with loss or regret a difficult situation to go through? I mean, isn't that one that we all know?
Female characters die or suffer. Death touches all of our lives eventually, and as such, it's often an integral part of dramatic storytelling. To say that women could never die in stories would be absurd. But it's important to consider the ways that women's deaths are framed and examine how and why they're written. There are some games that try to explore loss, death, and grief in more genuine or authentic ways that do not sensationalize or exploit victimized women. Dear Esther, Passage, and To the Moon are a few indie games that investigate these themes in creative, innovative, and sometimes beautiful ways.
Okay.
These more contemplative style games are a hopeful sign, but they're still largely the exception to the rule.
So, one game that doesn't show any characters whatsoever. One game where we didn't even see a female character, as far as I could tell. And then the other where it's just a bunch of pixels. So basically your thing is don't show any women. Okay.
A sizable chunk of the industry is still unfortunately trapped in the established pattern of building game narratives on the backs of brutalized female bodies. Violence against women is a serious global epidemic. Therefore,
yeah, in a lot of countries it is. But video games aren't causing that. So we need to stop. I think, if anything, well, I'm gonna let her finish.
To address the issue in fictional contexts demands a considerable degree of respect, subtlety, and nuance. Women shouldn't be mere disposable objects or symbolic pawns in stories about men and their own struggles with patriarchal expectations and inadequacies. The dark and edgy trope cocktails that we've discussed in this episode are not isolated incidents or obscure anomalies. Instead, they represent an ongoing, recurring pattern in modern gaming narratives. In most cases, the damsel characters have simply gone from being helpless to being dead, which is obviously not a huge improvement from her perspective. I know this episode has been a little bit grim, but please join me next time for the third and final installment covering the damsel in distress, where we'll take a look at some titles that attempt to flip the script on the damsel, and then we'll go on a quest to find examples of the elusive dude in distress role reversal.
Yeah, because that is a thing in terms of, you know, the role reversal. But anyways, yeah, so this, I don't even know where to begin, because I honestly, I want to end this video because I've already spent about an hour and a half reacting to this, because I've had a lot to say, and a lot of times where I've paused and I've been irritated. So I will agree with one thing about what Anita said towards the end, is that there is a situation where women are attacked, brutalized, and so on. However, there is no actual evidence that implies or can confirm that video games take part in that situation. In this video, it's very clear that in terms of, you know, dealing with motivation in video games, Anita is claiming that any form of motivation in a video game that is carried out by men is bad. In terms of the situations involving characters and what they go through, it begs the question of, like, what's her alternative to what happens to some of these female characters? As I mentioned before, or at least have asked before, you have characters that are tortured, experimented on, and turned into creatures. Do we just let them go about their day, leave the laboratory, and proceed to indiscriminately kill people? Or do we do what we can to try to help them? Whether in it, and I'm not just saying kill them, because I'm sure in a lot of other situations in video games where there is a situation where you can save them. In fact, actually, if anything, there is a situation in Silent Hill, the original one, where the police officer, where the female police officer that follows you into Silent Hill is about to turn into a monster. If you find this medicine, you can save her. But if you don't find the medicine and she turns into the monster, you have to kill her. You are given no other choice to kill her. So it's like, in the situation of the game, depending on, like, the scenario, what you've been able to accumulate in the game, or I guess overall, like, it's just an obvious question. In a situation where a female character, becomes a monster, and you're the only one that can stop her, do you just let her, like, leave her alone and let her live? Because at that point, if she is, you know, a monster, doesn't know at this point what's right and what's wrong, she's just gonna go out and fucking kill people. And then that's just more blood on your hands. As I said before, I do believe that there is a situation where, yeah, women are victims of violence. But it's not caused by video games. It really isn't. If anything, I'm going to say this, is that it does seem disingenuous where she spends all this time talking about the tropes of video games, trying to imply that video games cause real-world violence or affect men in real life, but in reality, they don't. And instead of spending so much time focusing on something that is fiction, she could be taking that time to actually help people in need that actually deal with violence against women. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, it's all in the description down below. As well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Novakast signing off. Have a good one. Take care. And I'll see you guys next video.